some people get boat anchors like me and bring it here to sell it or take it to the dump, and some people like to fix these things up. And he will show you actually how to do that. Take something that's really old and weathered, like myself, and make it look really nice. Which is great. Kind of like watching somebody work in a body timber shop. All banged up. So he will be starting that here in just about a minute here as soon as he finishes painting. And I urge you all to pay attention and ask a lot of questions. And for those of you watching at home, welcome to Nearfest. And here's Doug.
Thanks, Mitch. Well, it turns out that the valve is missing off the paint, so we're going to have a dry presentation. Okay. If you take this DHT paint, which you can buy in any automotive parts store, they use it to wrinkle paint rocker covers, and you spray it on a panel, spray it evenly, get a good wet coat. It tends to dry over a period of time. It takes a long time to dry and get the wrinkle. You can accelerate that by using a heat gun and just waving the heat gun over it. That will cause it to wrinkle faster. It's kind of, I wish I could have done it. I didn't realize that the spray tip is missing on this. You can watch it change. As you heat it, it'll all of a sudden start to go from left to right. Is it on? I'm cutting with a 2. It's on. You'll actually see it change, and it'll darken a little bit, and then you'll see the wrinkle come out, and you get a nice even wrinkle. Now, if you need to put more on, you can go back on a second coat, no problem at all. But keep in mind, even though it's wrinkled, it's not dry. If you put your hand on it, you'll smudge it and ruin it. So you need to set it aside and let it dry. Now, if you're going to touch paint up on something like an Arc 5 radio or anything like that that you've got a wrinkle finish on, you can take a spray can, spray it into a cup of some sort, a metal cup, because you spray it into a plastic cup, it'll dissolve it. And then you can actually touch up the paint with a brush, and then hit it with a gun. And so all those chips and marks that you have on it go away. They won't be perfect, but there'll be the point where you can stand from here to there and won't know the difference. Case in point, before it's going to be wrinkle painted, and another point of what you can do, if you have the old Arc 5 radios or transmitters, you know the window? You've seen the windows in those and how they shrink, the plastic shrunk with time. I looked at that for the longest time and avoided buying radios because I thought, well, I can't fix that. Well, online, I found Tough Act, which I believe is Lexan, polycarbonate sheet. And I have on it here Arc 5, 1 5/16 by 3 3/16 around the corners. So yesterday I couldn't find one that I had done, so I did one. And so there you see, it's all done over. Okay? I had a sign company make the scale for me. So you look at the original, here's the original with the scale. The plastic was cracked, and so I replaced it. And that's just a stick-on scale down here. So now you've got a radio that looks nice, and once we touch up the paint on here, it's going to look original.
You got that done for a sign company?
Excuse me? Any sign company, if you bring it to them, I think what I did is I brought them the scale like this. Can you reproduce that? And they can. With a computer today, they can do most anything. If you, for example, a few minutes from now, I'll show you, I can have masks made for different Johnson radios so that I can mask the 2 colors of paints off, and they have the mask in their computer. And so they just have to print off the mask when I want it. I actually took a BC 375 and took all the captions, which you could not read. They were actually etched into the black wrinkle paint, and there's no way that you're going to get the white paint in there. It would be a mess. So I had to make decals to go over. They matched up on scale to what was there, and you really can't tell the difference. So there's things like that that they can do, and it's relatively inexpensive. Let's see. Polishing compound. Lots of things you can polish and make it look better. This is Semichrome, which I've been using lately, quart can. I don't know how expensive it is. Quite frankly, I don't know. Can't remember how long ago I bought it. This is probably the last 10 years. That's what you can do with it. You can take a piece of aluminum and get it that shiny, probably even shinier than that with a little more work. If you have a buffing pad or a buffing machine with a wire wheel, you can take, like the steel shafts on a Ranger or any steel shaft on any radio, 1/4 inch round, take and run it on the wire wheel, take the rust off, run it on the buffer with some buffer rouge, and you can make that look like it's chrome. Very easy to do.
Just like you did.
Excuse me?
Just like you did in the housing meter.
Yeah, well, yeah, the meter on a Ranger is steel and it rusts. Well, if you clean it up and run it on a wire wheel, you can make it shine beautifully. A little wax on it and stay that way. So that's a buffing wheel and the semichrome. The same thing is true with knobs, like for the Viking Valiant, the Ranger. I don't know if you can see the difference in these. Can you see the difference in the shine from there? Okay, that's an original and a touch. This one's been done with semichrome polish. So you just take a rag and it takes a little work with your fingernail to get down into these little grooves. But that's all it takes. Now I used to do it on the buffing wheel. And it was not easy to do. I'd put a 1/4 inch shaft on it and lock it, because if you don't, it spins out of your hand and hits the floor, goodbye knob. I got to the point where I was putting a soft, like a blanket, but it was actually a drop cloth underneath the buffer, so that if it slipped out of my hands, it would hit that and would get destroyed. But then I started using a 1/4 inch shaft. Then I finally decided it's easier to do by hand than take that chance with the buffer wheel. So again, that's something you can do by hand very easily. Make the knob with
That polish right there?
that polish right here, same polish. All right, questions up to this point? That polish comes in handy for a lot of things.
So you get that in an automobile place?
Excuse me?
Automobile store?
Yes. Well, they might have it at Summit Racing.
Okay.
Okay. Summit has a lot of polish when they hand polish all those aluminum castings.
Another thing is when you have something that's got recessed lettering that's white and
Yeah.
white's gone, at paint stores, they have these touch-up paint sticks, maybe it's coming to it right now,
I'm gonna do it right now.
or squeezers,
Yeah.
and you can re-white them.
Well, while I'm on knobs, I'll do that, and then I'll come back and show you how to remark a knob, so that it comes out pretty good. I'm most familiar with Johnson equipment, so some of this is crossover to other manufacturers, but I know Johnson better than most. People ask me, how do you make the markers for the Johnson knobs? Okay, because they're all falling out. They disappear. They're yellow, So what I do is I take a drill and drill it to 1/8 rod. Now this 1/8 rod you can find in any hobby store, and it's polystyrene made by Evergreen Scale Models, and you get a whole bunch of it for short money. So you put it in here. And by the way, you want to drill it out close to the sides of the, clean your hole out of the knob to the sides of this as much as you can, just so it fits in nice. If it fits too tight, it'll crack the knob over time. So we just want to fit in there. If it's a little loose, put a dab of contact cement on it, put it in there, okay? After you clean it, of course. So you decide you want to cut it off now. So it's down to that size. How do I get it uniformly the same with every knob? Sandpaper, piece of double-sided circuit board, little tape on the edge. The thickness of the board, or the thickness of this material, is going to generate whatever the thickness of this is off the surface. So it's very easy to do. And you know it's going to be at an angle. The idea is to get the knob close to the edge of the circuit board where the white marker is, but not enough that you're going to scrape the edge of the little white marker. And then you feel the knob kind of flatten out, starts to run on the masking tape. And the masking tape is there to protect the knob. There you go. Every knob is going to come out the same because the thickness of your material here is the same. You can see what it did. It just simply took the plastic off. So it's pretty simple to do. And they look pretty nice when they're all done on radio like that. Got a little bit of a cold out. You'll have to excuse me for it. We all have that, I guess. Anyways, we talked about marking knobs. So this is a knob out of an ART-13. Pretty grungy. And it looks like it's been in a smoking environment, probably. Not much you can do to clean it, because you wipe out a few marks that are there. This stuff here is a heavy body acrylic RS color. I'm trying to think of the hobby store. Say a name. More, not more, there's another one. But most of the hobby
Hobby
stores.
Lobby?
What is it?
Hobby Lobby?
Maybe Hobby Lobby has it. The one I'm trying to think that I see, I can't remember the name of it. At any rate, what you want to do on any of these knobs that have white markings on them is take your thumb and a little bit of paint, your thumb, and wipe it across the markings. Okay? Okay, for now, I'm going to set it aside for just a minute. Water base, which is the nice thing. If you let it dry on your fingers too long, it's a little hard to take it off. Okay, so while that's drying just a little bit, because you got to think about what you have. You have a surface that's flat, and you have some grooves. So the paint that's in the grooves is going to stay soft or wet longer than the paint on the surface, correct? Because it's thicker, not thinner, right? Tools that I use all the time. I'm a stickler for taking resistors and capacitor leads off, all the way to the terminal strip. That takes a lot of time. I don't believe in splicing them in line. Occasionally, because of the distance between two tie points, I mean, very occasionally, I'll have to add a piece of wire. But when I do, it's like this. I hook them, crimp them, and install them so that they can't come apart. If you do this, I've seen situations, especially in some of the Ranger Kias, where somebody substituted a more modern carbon film resistor for carbon comp. Carbon film 2 watt is very small. It can't dissipate the heat that a 2 watt carbon comp resistor can. And so the heat goes down the leads, goes to where it's soldered, melts the solder. So if that lead was spliced in line, as opposed to being tied to a terminal, it would fall off. So I just believe you have to hook them, and you have to go back to the terminals. So how do you get them off the terminals? Well, first of all, the old-fashioned solder sucker works as good as anything. Some people use that caught with a little braid, the solder braid. I don't use that at all. I think this works as well as anything. They get clogged after a while, and you have to hit it with WD-40 on the inside, clean out. But by far and away, I can get probably 90% of it out. Well, then you've got 3 or 4 leads going into the same terminal. How do you get enough space to put that component back in there again? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. This is a tool set that looks like a doctor's pick set that you would see in the dentist's office, okay? That allows me with this little hooked one and the straight ones to get into that terminal and kind of clean it out so that I can get the wire in. This one is made by, it's probably called a Griots, G-R-I-O-T-S. You'll find them in Summit Racing. They'll have those kind of tools. But they're great picks, and they're very strong. They don't break and they don't bend. So I'll get in there and I'll try to get that wire from a resistor or capacitor and peel it back and get it to the point where I can finally get it out of the terminal strip and pull it out. The other tool you can use to do that is something like this, if you can find it, made by Matco. I inherited this somewhere. It's called a PM02. Now that I got it heated up and I got the terminal here, I can stick this into the terminal hole itself and get all the solder, rounded out or to the point where I can actually fit a component back through that hole. So that's the kind of thing you need to clean those terminals out. This thing, I think, is a carryover from heat kit years ago. I don't know if you can survive these or not, but you can bend the wire nice and tight around the terminal strip. And of course, then you got a poker here that you can poke holes to the terminal strip with. But again, this is, you have to have room to do it. This gives you the room to do it by having the hook on it. These, I don't even know if this is available anymore, but Craftsman made these years ago, and it's a screw starter. Somebody else might be making them today. I don't know, go online, you probably can find something. But it'll grasp the head of the screw long enough for you to get it into where you're going to go and tighten it up. Now, if it's a sheet metal screw, it's easy enough.
There's a source for stuff like that today, a company called Micromark.
Micromark?
Micromark, yeah. You can find them online. They just got a huge catalog of
Yeah, Craftsman discontinued these, and I think probably because they broke all the time. And of course, back in the day, anything that broke, bring Craftsman into place. And of course, Craftsman just kind of went south, and I think these were things that were costly to them. The other thing you can use, and these are still readily available, screw starter. Have you seen those before? That's a little back piece of plastic that'll hold a 1/4-inch nut. Now, Johnson stuff, and I'm sure Heathkit stuff uses a lot of those 1/4-inch nuts. And then on the other end is the 3/16. Okay? So you can press it onto the nut, and then take the nut and spin it on. And it's a lot easier in tight spaces doing it. You can cut it in half and even get in closer when you have tight
Where you
spaces.
get those?
They're online. I would just say nut starter and try it. I bought like 4 or 5 of them in one time, and they've lasted me probably 10 years. So, and they aren't expensive. This is something I learned when I was in high school working for a TV shop. This is called 3M strip caulk adhesive. I can put this on the end, a little bit on the end of a screwdriver, put a screw head on it, and put it in. Or I can put it on the screw head, stick it into the chassis to hold it temporarily, so when I flip the chassis over, the screw doesn't fall out. Or I can use it to hold a lock washer temporarily to get the lock washer in there before I put the nut on with a little speed tool here. So this I consider one of the best tools you can have in the shop. 3M strip caulk adhesive. It used to be something that was used on cars, it probably still is today, but I know back in the day I used it a lot on automobiles when we were putting things together. And it's still available today in auto parts stores. You might have to ask around. You'll
What's
get
the name of it again?
3M strip caulk.
Strip caulk.
Strip caulk adhesive, yep.
Strip caulk.
You can buy a box of it like this, and it comes in strips, like 3/16 long strips that long. You'll have enough there to last a lifetime. Probably will turn hard before you use it all up. But you can just take a bunch of it, roll it in a ball, and it's great. It takes very little. It takes very little to do it, but it's a great tool.
It's used for sealing windshields.
Excuse me?
Used for sealing windshields.
Yeah, they used to. I don't know if they do it anymore. Today they use silicone caulk of some sort. It's a lot faster. I can remember doing that 62 Corvette back in the day.
87 Volvo.
Excuse me?
87 Volvo.
Okay, same thing. Let's see if we can do this. Just a damp towel is all you need. It's still wet. The back side. Magic. Okay. That's one side. That's the other side.
What did you wipe it with? Just a damp cloth?
Just a damp cloth. Wipe it against the lines. Now, if you get done and you say, oh, I missed a line over here, or whatever, get it again with your thumb with some white paint.
So you wipe the same way you applied it?
Exactly. Because you want to get it into the grooves.
Yeah.
And you have to have enough paint on your thumb to force it into the groove. You can wipe it so much, and with too much of a wet cloth, you'll take the paint right out of the slots. Chicken head knobs, you know, have to have the line in the chicken head knob. Very easy to do with this. I did a whole PRT13 this way. It looked like it was brand new.
What's the tube you put out?
This here, it's called Liquitex Acrylic Artist Color. Titanium white. So it's a heavy body paint. The nice part is, even if you screw up the table with a little paint, you can take it off the water. Okay. Let me run down here and see if there's anything else I had here. Oh, powder coating. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about powder coating. I thought I brought in a box here. Where did it go? I left it outside. Let me go get it. So I want to talk to you for a minute about painting versus powder coating and what the advantages might be. A lot of these places that powder coat have basic colors available. So, for example, on a Ranger 1 or a Viking Valiant 1, they don't have their own. They don't have shades of color. They might have red, black, a couple of different grays, so you're stuck with whatever they have. This happens to be a Ranger 2. This was powder coated. And I had them tape off the edge just like the original had, so that this bonds to the gray on the inside of the front panel. Probably not necessary today. It was done for RFI. Maybe it is still necessary, I don't know. But it was also for TBI. The trouble with powder coating places is they want a minimum charge of $250. So I think I brought 4 of these in at one time. I started off with how much is it going to cost me to do one? $250. How much cost to have 2? $250. How much for 3? $250. How much for 4? $250. Where does it end? I don't know. But I got 4 done for $250. That's reasonable. So that works pretty well for the Ranger 2. But you're going to find a place that will do it for less than the minimum charge, and I haven't found one yet. So I have to wait until I get a number together. But the surface is really durable. It doesn't chip. You don't have to do anything more to it. If you get it to them stripped, that's even better. How do you strip it? Bead blast it. Unfortunately, you have to have, a sandblaster, which I have available to me. And it takes a while. It takes me probably 40 or 45 minutes to get one of these really clean. And then I have to hand sand it afterwards. Now, what about painting one? I painted 3 value cabinets last week. And I bought some paint. I didn't think twice about the price of the paint, and I wish I did. But it is what it is. What does it take to do one? First of all, you bead blast it. So a sandblast it. That's going to take probably 30 minutes to 45 minutes per cabinet to do that. Then I got to quickly hit it with a sanding block to take off the over. Actually, what happens, if you can see it under a microscope, you can see these little fingers where the sandblast causes the steel to come up like this. So what you want to do is sand it flat. So then I put on a sanding primer, 3 coats of sanding primer. So the sanding itself only takes me 10 minutes, and it's the actual primer application, probably another 15 minutes. If you're doing 3 of them, it'll take you 15 minutes. It just doesn't take that long to do it. That's the time it takes to do it. It's not talking about the time in between that you have to wait for each coat to dry. So now you have the sanding primer all done. You've sanded it off. Get a pretty nice smooth finish. And now you're going to put on what they call a value primer for the base coat. And it's a dark black. You shoot that up. That's another 15 or 20 minutes. A couple quick coats. Then you can put on your base color. This is just the same as your car. Base coat, clear coat. So you put on your base coat. And that's probably going to take you another half an hour, 45 minutes. And then you're finally going to clear coat the thing. And you're going to spend another 45 minutes. But again, it's a block of time, probably 2 hours that you use 15 or 20 minutes of. Because how long does it take to get done and go around and paint? Not very long. So last week I bought a quart of paint, maroon, that is pretty much a match for the Valiant. I bought a quart of activator for that paint, catalyst, and then I bought a gallon of thinner for that paint. Take a guess. What do you think?
50, 60.
Keep going. Put another 0 behind it. $752.
For how much?
$752. Now keep in mind, that's paint, activator, and a gallon of thinner. That is just for the color. That does not include the value primer, the sanding primer, the clear coat, and then I still have to finish because then I have to wet sand the clear coat box.
And how much of each? A gallon of each?
Excuse me?
A quart of each? A quart? A gallon? How much of each?
A quart of paint is $299. If you went to paint a car today, you'd pay over $2,000 in materials. It's crazy. So I had to stop to rethink it. How many of these cabinets can I paint for $1,000? Because I have to add in the other paint that I use. And so maybe 6. Do the math. You know, at $160 and change, You know, is it worth it? What can I charge for it? What will people pay for it? Is the answer. And what if I do a complete restoration? How does this drive the price on the restoration beyond reality? So I'm going to have to rethink it. I think probably what's going to happen is I'm going to go to Sherwin-Williams. I've been using high-end DuPont paint, and it's very expensive. If I go with Sherwin-Williams, it's just a different procedure. It takes a long time to learn how to paint with a particular manufacturer's system. I used to, when I was a kid, paint, you know, in an auto body shop. I did a lot of different things as a kid, and that was one of the things that I learned to do. I actually wanted painting an airplane, painting cars, painting radios. So, you know, you have to learn how to work with each manufacturer's system. So it's really going to stop and make me think about it. No, a face is not too bad. If I do a face, I have to strip it, I have to etch prime it, which I could buy a rattle can at Home Depot to etch prime it. Then I sanding prime it with 3 coats, get it flat. Now, one of the tricks is on a face, and you wouldn't know it unless you turned it over, and I can show you here. The backside of a Valiant or a Ranger, there are spot welds here on these panels that show in the front. So when you strip it, they originally had a red lead primer on there to cover those defects. You expose those defects. And I have a special, very fine body putty that I use there to get those defects hidden. Then I sanding prime it, put the sanding primer on, prime it, and then I'll put a base color down, I'll put a gray down, and then I'll mask the gray off and paint the maroon. Now the maroon, I can't silk screen on a Ranger. On a Valiant, you'll notice that the maroon doesn't go around the edge, but on a Ranger, it goes all the way around the edge. So I can't silk screen around the edge. I've got to paint that whole inner part maroon, and then send it out and have them letter it, silk screen it, bring it back, clear coat it, wet sand and buff it. A lot of work. But the paint isn't all that expensive to do faces. But again, it's time. You know, I enjoy doing it, I enjoy the results. Here's the result. Okay? That's a Ranger 1 face. All done. Now, why do I have to wet sand and buff it? I don't have a perfect atmosphere to paint in. And this is an acrylic enamel base, and acrylic enamel picks up dust. It's like a magnet to dust. So after I've done the gray, I think which one I do first. I have a mask here that goes over this. So I must paint the maroon first, then I make the mask and paint the gray. All right? Once that's done, I have to wet sand it, get all the nibs out of it from the dust. Then it goes up to the silk screen up its back. Then when I clear coat it, inevitably you have orange peel, you have a little dust. The only way I get that out is to wet sand and buff it. So I really don't have any choice but to have a nice finish like this. Now some people like it, some people don't. It doesn't look original. Well, you know what? I like it. If you don't like it, it's okay. There's no way I'm going to be able to paint it flat. Now again, if I had 20 of these, people wanted them done, I could probably ship them off to some guy to get them done and have them come out just looking like the original. The problem is the originals were so thinly painted with lacquer, and you can't buy lacquer anymore. So the lacquer was very user-friendly. You could do a flat finish with lacquer. If I take a clear coat and I add a flattening compound to it, and there's one dust nib in it, and I try to take it out, I get a gloss finish. It doesn't stay flat. It buffs itself up when you do that. So, you know, this whole process of restoration takes a lot of time, a lot of cost involved. What else? List here. Okay, I think I pretty much covered it. I've got some cards up here if you want. If you want to call me and ask me something, I have people from all over the country call me. Some of them think that I can answer all of their problems, and it's a little bit long, but I try to do the best I can. Sooner or later, they have to swim. I can't do it all. I'll give you a little background on how I get to this. First of all, I was a high school math teacher. But before that, I worked in a body shop, I worked in a radio and TV shop as a kid in high school. And then I taught high school math for 12 years. And then, so kind of a fluke, the athletic director at the school where I taught asked me if I could fix the scoreboard in the gym. When I got off the ladder, he said, why don't you do that? Nobody else does that. That was 1973. It's been 51 years, 72, sorry, 51 years that I've been in business now. Started off part-time, and by 1981, I had to leave teaching. I was so busy. I was doing Boston Garden, Fenway Park, the old Schaefer Stadium. Today, we have over 3,000 accounts throughout New England. My son has taken over most of it about 12, 13 years ago, and keeps me busy around the shop. I have plenty to do, and I have my own building where I can do all this stuff and separate and apart from the other building. But I get pulled into all kinds of different things, especially the old components that I knew about when I was in it day in and day out. Well, I keep saying it takes old guys to fix old things. And so they call on me once in a while to come in and do that. But we get stuff that comes in from all over the country that the manufacturer no longer supports. And we do. We actually have parts made for these control consoles and some of the other things that we have. So on top of that, I'm a licensed private pilot, instrument rated, and I own my own airplane. I also am a licensed Coast Guard 100-ton captain, and I do a lot of fishing offshore on a 3-foot cargo express sport fishing. So I keep myself pretty busy for being what some people would consider to be retirement age. Did I have a question? I'm sorry. Thought somebody raised your hand. Go ahead.
I have a project going on in my living room.
Your wife like that?
Well, I have 0 dB of spousal attenuation. And I have a relatively modern aluminum rack.
Yeah.
And I'm mounting various things in it, one of which is an SX42.
Okay.
So it is out of its cabinet, and I'm debating just how much effort it's going to take to make it look pretty as it sits there exposed. Is there like a set of polishing Dremel, related tools that I should be buying?
What are you polishing exactly?
Well, I just kind of want to clean it up. That you
The SX42?
Pardon?
The SX42?
Yes.
Or the cabinet?
No.
Chassis?
The chassis. It's going in a rack.
Oh.
No cabinet. So I've got to decide how much energy I want to put into making it look.
You're
pretty.
saying that the chassis is the thing that you're more interested in?
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, not the face. The face you can
Right.
live with. Okay. I used to do Valiants, and I used to strip off a lot of the components and then take.
Hey, it works. I really don't want to touch it.
Well, the other thing I've seen or heard people doing is they'll take the same polish with Q-tips and things like that and get in there and scrub them around, and you can really clean it up. I'll tell you, most of the stuff that comes into me, I take immediately outdoors and hit it with a combination of 409 and ammonia. Howard Mills tipped me off to that years ago. I've got it in a spray bottle and mix it in a spray bottle and then go outside, spray the whole thing.
I ran an SX40 through the dishwasher once.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it, but.
Well, I took the meter out for one thing. I knew that was going to be an issue. It'd be nice if you took a VFO cover off or whatever is covered, because that's going to hold the moisture for a while. But especially this time of year.
Oh, yeah. Outside, bright sun.
Go. Set it out in the sun. Let it bake itself.
So anyway, I was just wondering if there's some kind of kit of like little miniature Buffy things like you'd use in an auto body shop.
I've got those things. I've never used them. Because they're so small for the most part that you really can't. I just really can't get in and work them and try to get it evenly. That's the problem. Trying to get it so you don't have a spot here that's shiny.
Yeah.
But
well, this is on wheels, so I expect to work on it once in a while I'm still alive.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, the combination of the ammonia and 409, a lot of times like the coil on a Valiant, which will have a patina on it from age, tarnish. I sometimes use silver polish cleaner on it, but you'd be surprised with that 409 ammonia dust to aluminum and even to those coils. it'll take aluminum chassis and clean them up pretty well. The other thing I've had to do, I had a BC610 and also a, Dust Kilowatt. Same guy had them. And I thought he was doing me a favor by giving me a BC610. When I saw what had happened to it, it was, I walked around for 6 months wondering if I'd ever do it. Mice had been in it. Same thing with the Johnson Dust Kilowatt. I had to take them both completely apart. I mean, every nut, bolt, wire, tube socket, you name it. The BC610 was a steel chassis, so what I did there was I sanded it all down and painted it, and then re-lettered the chassis just like it was originally. You know, labor of love. And I had the whole cabinet stripped and then it was powder coated with a wrinkle paint, and then Howard actually had a silk screen. It looks like brand new, you know. Anyways, the Johnson Dust Kilowatt did the same thing, only I think there are 3 or 4 little chassis in there, and they sent them all out to have them replated because the mice had just, ruined them. And it wasn't so much that I wanted it to all look smooth, I wanted them to be clean and be able to work in there and not feel like from what the mice left in there. But it was, you can't put it all back together. Johnson 500, I've had several of those come in where the chassis is completely rusted because what they did was they set them in the cellar floor or they put them in the garage and they get wet and nobody bothers with them. Of course, when they go to sell them on the estate, they throw it away because they don't know what it is and they only save the RF deck. So occasionally I could come up with this 4-foot set, get an RF deck and no power supply. But I have one now that I actually took the power supply and took the chassis and sent it out, had it replated, and then I bought a whole set of Peter-Doll transformers from the guy who had them at a really good price. And I rebuilt the whole power supply with a whole new harness. And I've done this several times, and the harnesses are not hard to build because Johnson provides you with a drawing that shows you how to set it up. And I have a board with nails on it marked out with the alphabet. And then I can mark out the ones I can build right there and then put it in the radio and hook it up. So there are tricks and ways to do things that you learn over the years. So those are extreme. So one of the things that I said, how much is too much? I think you have to look at the value of what you get when you get done. Is it for you or is it for sale? If it's for sale, you're probably not going to get a lot back for what you put in. If it's for you because you like the way it looks, that's different. I get people that say, I want that Johnson 500 restored 100%, and they're willing to pay $5,500 to $6,000 to get one done. That's a lot of money. But they can put it in the living room and walk in, somebody looks at it with a finish like that on it and says, that looks nice, or it's clean. And then on the floor underneath, they've got a beautiful cabinet, power supply with a cabinet cover, beautifully painted. Neat, they can work on it. They know it's stock. It's not been modified, so when they get it, they get the manual with it, and they know that represents exactly what's in that unit. Because if I modify it, and I don't provide the documentation to go with it, somebody else gets it, they don't know what they're dealing with. So that's why I keep everything stock. Questions? Oh, you've been a good crew. Being a former teacher, there'll be a test afterwards. If you pass, you can leave. If you don't, you have to stay. Yes, sir.
I need some help with quadratic equations.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
After class.
Yeah, I can do that after class, sure. Yeah. Do you want to take the first derivative or second derivative of those?
You mentioned before, ammonia. What's the, how much ammonia do you add?
50-50. Yeah, it really works well. You'd be surprised, and it takes a lot of the grunge up. It's amazing how some of them, when you spray them, you can see that orange goo from nicotine to roll off, The other thing you can use too, like, you gotta be careful, on the plastic dials for the Ranger, the Valiant, or any plastic at all, there's a product called 210 that you can find pretty readily almost anywhere now. Early on, I only find it at the airplane places because we use it to polish your windshield, but it really works well cleaning up plastic. If you're really careful, you can take the meter on a Valiant apart or any meter and take the face off, clean it on the inside with that cleaner, and on the outside too, polish it. It will really come out nice. The only problem is, you do it in cold weather when it's dry, you get static buildup on the inside. And so if you put your hand on the face of the meter needle moves up, all you have to do is go, and it goes back down. So that goes away in a short period of time, but you get static buildup on plastic. So the other thing you can do is all the hardware, you can actually put on a buffer. Things like the nuts that go on controls on the front panel, it's just somewhat hidden by a knob. But if you just polish one side of the nut and the edges, then when you look at the knob and you see the nut behind it, shines nice. So you clean up all those little bitty things that really make the difference in detail, and it really makes it look nice. About out of gas.
Did you ever do a clock face? Like on the Hammerlands, they got the little clock?
I've actually had made, at one point, the plastic to go over the clock face. And I had a guy that was going to come up with a solution to replace the clock, and he passed away. So that was a dead end. Didn't mean it that way. It was dead end.
I have one down in the cellar the other day. I happened to look at it, and the face is all flaked, the paint's all flaking off. So, you get the dial with no numbers and nothing.
There are some guys that are very good at making transfers, and if you look online, I wouldn't be surprised if you can find somebody that's already done the Hammerland face. So you'd want to take that face off very carefully, clean it completely down, and strip the paint off so that you can apply that transfer. It'll be a self-stick kind of thing, I'm sure. Good example, I was telling Augie here, I have a Navigator that the meter was bad, but it turns out that the Drake TR4 used the same meter. Pretty sure, pretty close to the same value. But I found on an electric radio a guy had indicated that he had the face, and so I replicated the face, but you will never know the difference. Never know. So I'll guarantee there's somebody out there that's done what you want to have done. And it probably can create it, somebody could create it for it as well. But you do one, do five. You know what I mean? Because you'll mess one up or whatever. So then, what else can I help you with? Any value? Did you take something away from here today that you could use? Okay, that's all. If you take one thing away, I think I've accomplished what I wanted to. Again, take a card. By the way, my email is not on the card. It references the website, but I'm not sure that's the correct email. I'm working on revamping the website now, and there'll be a lot of equipment on there that I've done.
I have a question. If you ever go to his shop, don't go by QRZ.com.
No, that's my house.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about Shulman Auction and the value too? You guys ever go to Shulman Auction? You ever see that online? Okay, if you look online, there's an auction going on right now, and I think on the first page of the auction, down about 2/3 of the way, you'll see a Viking Valiant 2, and right beside it, a single sideband adapter. I did those. I can tell by the pictures it was my work, particularly the VFO box. This is a VFO box, by the way. It's a side cover of a VFO, Ranger or Valiant, any of those things that Johnson made. And normally I have to take the whole box off to repair the VFO, replace the resistor inside, and anything else that's wrong with it. So I polish it when it's off. And it's sort of my signature. It might not be polished anywhere else, but it'll at least be polished on that. So I can tell by the capacitors that are in there and everything the way it was done that it was one of mine. The sideband adapter is a match. I don't know why I didn't put it all in here together, because both of them were powder coated together. Both of them were painted the same silver faces together in gray, and all the cables are there, and you could match them right up beautifully. So I think what's happened is it's gone through 2 or 3 hands, and they lost track of who did it originally. The other thing is, if you're doing Johnson or you're doing Heathkit or anybody really, Tom at Hayseed Handfest, if they're Hayseed Handfest does some really nice capacitors, cam capacitors that have multiple values, just like the originals, and will fit right in place. K1TLI, Mark Olson. If you just Google K1TLI, go through his website, you will find kits for all the Johnson capacitors and Collins sets. I actually put them together. It was why I did. And he sells them. I don't want anything to do with selling them. Just put them together, you sell them. But they're complete. And the idea is, if you went out to buy those, 2 from this company, DigiKey, 3 from Mauser, by the time you get through paying freight, it'd be more money than if you bought the whole kit. And I think he ships them for free. So he's a good one as a reference for capacitors for Collins and any of the Johnson stuff. Beyond that, Common Hayseed, we have all of the others.
That's the one that looked at Spark Joy, got that switch for the navigator? That's the same guy?
Yes, yeah,
Thought so.
yeah, K9PQ. So he has a lot of odd things here on his site that you wouldn't think of normally would be available. He's had a lot of things made too.
What's this called again?
KE9PQ, Kilo Echo 9,
Kilo Echo 9.
Peter Queen.
He's got a lot of Drakes on there.
Yeah, he did a lot of Drake stuff.
R4s.
Yeah.
And they're like in absolutely perfect condition.
That's KE9PQ.
Right, yeah, just Google it, Mark Spitjai. And, you know, what he doesn't have, he'll have shortly on order capacitors you're looking for. Usually he has a huge order he sends me once a month. So busy.
He's different from the Hayseed Hamfest guy.
He is. What happened is, there used to be a guy in Wichita, it was called EH Enterprises or something like that. And he was doing it for me. And when he quit, Tom and I had an agreement that I would continue to do the Collins and for as long as I wanted to, and the Johnson, he'd take care of everything else. So the Collins and the Johnson I do through KE9PQ, but Tom does everything else. And we don't cross paths. And that's just the agreement we have. Verbal agreement, we always work well together. At some point, I'm going to say, you know, I don't need this anymore. But I do it because I have fun doing it and putting the kits together. Get them right. That's the big thing, get them right. When you do a 75A4, there's 22 capacitors in that kit, including the big can, the 40 can that plugs it in. Anything else? As you talk, you remind me of things, so I don't know if there's anything else. Anyways,
If you have a high-end hobby shop in your area that does RC planes, model trains, fancy model trains, that's a good resource. You can find all sorts of things.
yeah, you're right. That's where I found this stuff to begin with, you know. And I'm open to things that you can tell me that you do different than what I do, because again, I'm a very small niche. I tried to find things that I thought were general tools that you needed to have and general techniques to get things done. But I don't have all the answers. You know, I certainly would, you know, if you call them and say, what do you do for this or what do you do for that, I certainly try to find out for you. But again, I'm open to any suggestions anybody has for anybody else here today.
What do you use to clean, say, a wrinkle finish, HRO senior receiver?
To clean it,
The outside.
boy, I mean, it's an existing finish, or, yeah, in other words, if you had a 75A4, what would you use to clean that finish?
Yes.
Don't know. I mean, I would say Windex, something that's not too abrasive or too caustic. You're never going to get that deep, rich color back again because it will fade with age. You know, dirt, oil, whatever else. It's like people ask me about what color is the maroon? Can you give me the formula for that on a Valiant? I said, you know, on any given day, they either painted them with 2 layers or 3 layers, and the paint changed color by the mix and by the application. So no, I can't give you a color that's going to match what you have. You know, they say, well, I want to touch up a couple of scratches. Can't do that.
Somebody has something like a 75A4 that's like mint original. To keep it clean, what do you recommend? And Scott's liquid gold or
You don't want to put anything
what?
oily on there at all, because that's going to attract dust. Again, some kind of a light detergent, or any kind of light detergent, not heavy, and just clean it with paper towels and Windex. That works. I think that's all you're going to have. Now, if you want, for example, the dial is yellowed, Charlie Talbot, you'll see his ad, the electric radio, has replacement dial rolls. Yeah. And you can actually take the old one off. It's not hard to realign it either, but you've got to be careful when you put it on, and then you can adjust it. There are ways to adjust it so it comes into the window perfectly.
But I'm just talking about the
exterior.
The cabinet. You know,
Yeah, no, it's just typical things that you'd use to clean anything.
like
I guess.
Like a dilute solution of Dawn dishwashing liquid or?
I would water it down pretty much. I don't
Pardon?
think you don't want to leave it too heavy, make it too heavy.
I said dilute or?
Yeah, and then wipe it down with clear water afterwards. 'Cause any of those detergents leave film afterwards. My wife's always asked me, well, if you wash the floor with this, then you're gonna wipe it clean with fresh water afterwards, because it leaves a residue and will continue to pick up dirt. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I do what she tells me to do. Yes, dear. All right, I know they gotta switch over here, because I saw